And we cut her short. Hello, how are you? Welcome, everyone. You are muted. Oh,
Good
hello.
evening. Happy Wow Woo Woo Wednesday.
A happy Wowel Woo
Wow.
Woo Wednesday to you, too. And, well, it's a wow of an episode where I'm sure there's pyramids, Illuminati orgies, and we're talking about the Grand Canyon and the Grand Canyon Pyramid Complex, and who knows what sort of wild temples are really there.
There's so much in that canyon. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that there was like a city there. Like, there's a village like 3,000 feet down there. And
Yeah,
they have to
like
get
a
their things
Pueblo
like on a
village.
mule.
Right, like an indigenous village there, and then like it's like almost a castle sort of thing, and then there's also the underground cities, and then there's all of these pyramid like temple structures that somehow align up to the Orion's constellation. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, the names of these temple too. Shiva, Isis, Horus.
Right, Apollo, Jupiter, even the Ottoman amphitheater. The famous Isis temple, I believe, is the one where they went in and covered up the giant cavern gaping entrance of it in the 60s or 50s, claiming there was a plane accident and somehow the plane created a perfect brick wall. It kind of blows you away.
But there,
But
I mean, there's like literally a village like these days that is down there on an Indian reservation, and they get their mail by mule.
that's wild.
They're like, send it to me by mail
I, I'm gonna have
by
to
mule.
visit this mule village. It's like I could envision it as like one of the last surviving villages in that movie Postman. Right? Like still getting that mail by mule. Right? And so we also have Cheops Pyramid is one of the main ones there, which also aligns with the star in Orion's belt. Which one star is it here? Ooh, wrong way. Oh, anywho, we got random caves all over the Grand Canyon, and here is Grand Canyon Pyramid City. Can I read the names? No, not good enough resolution. But here we go. Here's the Isis Temple, and we got the cave there, right in the center.
Wow. Oh,
And
wow. Gorgeous.
no longer there though. It's like what
Right?
happened to the cave? What happened to this giant entrance that was there?
Imagine what it
Here,
looked like before.
right? And I envision it being dammed in like almost like a Venice of the Grand Canyon, this giant like lake inner sea city of Pyramid City. Oh, shout out John Sup. Thank you for donation on whatever channel. Okay. Sorry.
It's just interesting that there's like armed guards with like M16s down there still to this day. Billy Carson talks about how he went down there and he says NASA has a base down there.
That is very like not surprising, but surprising at the same time. Like if this is true, it's like okay, well, that definitely confirms why they're at Devon Island and the pyramids that are up there, which we will also cover here tonight. But so Tower of Set, Tower of Ra. Um, What else? Osiris, Horus, Cheops, and then there's also the Apollo, the Jupiter, maybe even a Saturn, Temple of Saturn, Saturn Pyramid. But
There's a
just
Buddha one too, a Buddha
Pluto, yeah,
temple.
Pluto. That's the one that it
No,
is.
Buddha. I meant there's a Buddha temple.
Oh, Buddha, and I think is it there? No,
Krishna.
it's Pluto, not Plato. It's a Pluto temple, I believe.
Well, it's like that's an underworld. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a Pluto one.
Yeah, it's over to the east, I guess, by Sumer Butte, I believe, up top. And I zoom in.
It's interesting the relics that
Oh,
are
yeah,
found down there.
there's Buddha Temple, yeah. And Buddha Cloister. Taylor's Butte. A Phantom Ranch. Interesting. And it's spelt like a ghoul of a ghost. It's a Phantom Ranch right in the heart.
There's a lot of relics down there where it's like depicting lotus flowers.
Well, Buddha and Isis temples. Like it's wild. They literally chased Rex out of there with a Apache helicopter and crashed his drone. It was wild.
Did you see that video? You had to have seen it, where it's like the girls, their hair's sticking up, and then they're showing that there's some type of like electro force field where it was like it's almost like getting shocked. Like, did they put this up? Like, maybe. Or is that like a natural thing that happens at some of those in some of that area down there?
I am not sure. But we have another phantom here and a haunted up here right next to Buddha Temple. So Buddha Temple is the top. Haunted Canyon is like the bottom. Wow. Interesting. I gotta find the full map. Okay, here we got Ottoman's Amphitheater. Can't make out. It's too pixelated to sadly to make out what's on the North Rim, but I believe that's where like Jupiter and Apollo and Pluto.
When you look at it on Google Earth and you look at the like there's a volcano nearby, and you could almost see how it erupted. Like when you look at it from a aerial perspective down, you could see where it like blackened, and you could see like it was like lava, like damage from the volcano erupting. And that's what, like, I was flying over that place in a bunch of times in the last year, and every time I go by that place, I'm like, that area where the volcano is, right, it's super close, it's right outside of the Grand Canyon. But seeing it, it's like, yeah, like seeing it all dark, you could, and what it did, and looking down, you could see it on Google Earth.
Just the devastation.
Yeah.
Right, like
That's ISIS right there. That looks like a
no, or maybe yeah. This one could be Shiva or Horus.
Yeah, I feel like that one. It looks like a Horus head, doesn't it?
It does.
An Oplomado falcon that was indigenous to America.
Right, like look at these are wild ancient building infrastructure. Like this is Like they're perfect towers. And if you just had it flooded all the way up to the entrance. Look at this.
Yeah, what
Oh,
type of event would cause such petrification? Like it's like it's zapped. So I always feel like it gets flooded. You know, like there's some type of massive flooding, and then like some type of plasma event that would zap it like that to happen on such a massive scale everywhere.
I have to agree. There it was probably a plasma catastrophe at some point, or nuclear maybe, or some mass radiation frying event. Not good. Not good. Like this. I
Yeah, it's
just
called Mount Trumbull, like Trumbull, and that's like where the volcano is. If you guys want to look it up on anybody at home on the Google Maps.
yeah, sadly I have yet to get Google Maps to work while streaming without crashing my freaking laptop.
Bernie is
Uh,
accepting donations to upgrade his system for better entertainment and viewing and learning. Donate today.
All right. So, like, even like in the foreground, why is it all just these blocks everywhere? Well, surreal.
I feel like it predates a lot of the stuff in Egypt. I feel like it's older, much older.
Looks very similar to Petra.
Right? It's carved into that wall. That makes you think, of like a laser carving it into, like 3D printing into rock.
Potentially, at the very least, some geopolymer. I seem to see faces everywhere, but maybe it's pareidolia. Maybe
I feel like they had massive, like in Game of Thrones how they had like massive statues. Like I feel like that was all around the world, like massive ones.
I've witnessed many, and I'm going to be exploring more in Alberta and Montana this coming spring and summer, documenting them. And I believe that's why they don't let us go into the Grand Canyon because they're everywhere.
So did Rex's what happened to his drone? Was he able to
Um,
get it or was it like blasted
just
down?
like straight crashed it straight down. He said like it's he's never seen it like lose control and just like fly straight at full speed into the ground like that before. Like it was just, and then as soon as it hit the ground, the Apache helicopter like came up from below the level of the canyon sort of thing. It was crazy.
I'm just glad like people are still able to go there. Like if you know,
Straight no fly zone though.
yeah, you can't fly over ISIS. I think there's some parts you could fly over.
Probably. It's killing me because I have saved a higher resolution definition map or version of this map that all of the names are clearly visible, but it is not the case today. And this is only like a quarter of the actual size of the map. Anyways.
Isn't there like they think there's a lot of stories too of the Hopis speak of ant people like coming up in that area and like taking certain people down before like a catastrophic event and
Yeah.
knowing to take them in.
Exactly. And it's right in that spot. Also, Terry Carter has done a lot of interviews of the different elders as well as the treasure hunters in the areas there that all speak of this potential still existing inner world city that is there that like has like the ant people, giants, and whatever else could be. Who knows? You know, maybe it's like that MIB Men in Black, yeah, only in the inner underground.
Terry's got some great stuff.
He sure does.
I love the way he talks too. He sounds like an early 1900s radio show, and he's so enthusiastic. And he's like, "Hey, everybody, I got this person over here, and we're gonna talk treasure." Like, I just love his vibe. He has like such a innocence and purity and enthusiasm in his voice. I could listen to him talk all day long. I just always have a smile on my face when I hear Terry Carter.
Right? Me too. And shout out Mindful Exposures. We're gonna have to get together and do an episode together very soon. And her Pareidolia Dreams. It's right on point with what we're doing. And she spent last summer with at the Moon Lake Convention with Terry Carter and getting to know that crew. And yeah, hearing a bunch of their stories.
I spoke to Sibs today. Seeing is believing. Sibs.
Right,
Yeah, we're gonna cover some stuff coming up. It was great.
I look forward to that. It's gonna be wild.
It's Sibs' debut. He makes all these videos for all these years, but he's never like done a show. So that's gonna be awesome.
You're popping the Sib cherry.
I'm initiating Sibs. That's great. I didn't know that you were the one to have Dutch like have his debut, like to show his face.
Show his face, yeah. It was a beautiful thing.
Was he trying to get out of it last second? He's like, "No, man," or was he okay? Was he
nervous? No, he was all set up for it on the second interview. He was stoked for it, and then I don't know. They've cut his internet and just been like threatening him and harassing him ever since, and it's kind of shitty. It sucks. Hopefully, he's doing all right, and it's like been trying to get him on for the third one for like 8 months now, and don't know. Like he's able to get online and like do like emergency forecasts when there's big activity for like the last couple of weeks, but he hasn't even no live chat. There's been 0 live chat allowed on his channel. It's weird. It's like can't even interact or like talk while he's live. It's so strange.
And they haven't like he doesn't have any strikes or anything like to remove his channel.
I'm not sure. They might be trying to attack him again. I have no idea. It's I hope he's doing okay. I'm not sure what's the case is, or maybe it's like, is it just me they've blocked? I don't know. It's so strange. I just don't know.
So I was telling you earlier about Timothy Hogan, how he found part like he went down to the Grand Canyon, and he is a what is he, like a knight? Grandmaster of the Knights Templar, and like he's a Rosicrucian, and he's written several books about it, on alchemy and everything. And his Rosicrucian order has a secret map about the cave systems and where to go there. And it's interesting what he found. And he ended up getting like arrested by guys that like didn't have any names or anything on their uniform. And then he got like a ticket, but like the address of what was on it like didn't even exist. It wasn't even a real place. So it was very fascinating. And he found like an Anubis drawing and he shared photos. And I think this was in the 90s. But yeah, they discuss it. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's wild. And let's take a listen, because this is last episode, last week. I believe it was Hans and you were discussing Timothy a bit or something. I think
Probably
it was Hans.
Hans.
Anywho,
I think it was Hans.
it was Hans.
Hear about this Egyptian area in the Grand Canyon?
I'd first at the time I'd been very active in a Rosicrucian lodge at the time, and I had been talking with some of the leadership in the Rosicrucian lodge that I belonged to, and they were aware of this and had first told me about it, and I started looking into it, and of course I found the old newspaper article about it, which for some people have tried to dismiss because it was written on April 1st. And so, they said, oh, it was April Fool's Day. It was just a big prank. But actually, there are several areas of the Grand Canyon that are named after Egyptian gods and goddesses and other things, Egyptian related. And so what we did is then I had another mentor of mine who had a map that had these different sites listed out, and he had triangulated certain sites, and we narrowed down where we thought the most likely spot was for this particular location. And I should say that there are, at least when I went there were a number of different cave systems around the Grand Canyon. So I don't want to say what I found was definitively it, but I did find one particular site I found several caves that were cemented up, which was kind of unusual. But I found one particular site that had a pictograph carving of the god Anubis on the outside of it. And of course, this is, Anubis is an Egyptian god. And it was a big cave. It was a big cave system. And you could only get in at about maybe 20 feet. And then it was cemented up, so you couldn't go any further. And then I got arrested at that point. So
can you tell us about when you were arrested? What were these guys like when they approached you? Did they have any official badges or ID? How did they identify themselves?
Yeah, they had identified themselves as working for the Grand Canyon Park System. They looked like park rangers, but they had badges. But the thing that was unusual, well, there are a couple of things that were unusual. The first one was, we had actually purchased a camping pass for the Grand Canyon, which you would have assumed meant that you could camp out in the Grand Canyon, right? That's what we purchased. So but he told us, he said, oh, well, that pass is no good for this area where you're at. And we said, well, it didn't specify that we needed to be someplace in particular. And he said, no, you have to leave. You basically have two options. And this is where he pulled out his gun. And I remember one of the guys I was with got my friend Dave got very upset about this. But when he pulled out his gun, but he basically said, you have two options. You can either hike out of here right now, or you can go to one of our designated campsites and pay an extra amount of money to camp there for the night, and then camp and then hike out in the morning. And he gave us a ticket. And so we ended up hiking out, we ended up going to a designated camping site, camping there for the night. There was no way we could get back out of there that night. We were just too exhausted, and there were signs the entire way down saying, don't try to hike in and out in one day because it's too much. But of course, this is what this park ranger was trying to order us to do. And then the really weird part was when I went to look into the ticket after I got home, it turned out that the ticket had been issued from a bogus courthouse. It wasn't even a real courthouse. It was like
Wow.
it was like some sort of a weird thing that had been set up by an independent agency to monitor this region. And so this actually led to me meeting, well, we ended up fighting it. Obviously, it ended up getting dropped. I didn't have to, I didn't get any charges against me for it because it wasn't even a real courthouse. But at the time, Congressman Schaefer of Colorado, he was in the 6th district of the House of Representatives. He had been involved in the National Parks Committee, and so he wanted to know more about this. So I ended up having to meet with Congressman Schaefer at the time, and I think as a result of some of that, that's what led to more federal oversight over the park itself, which you could argue if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But at least there's not bogus tickets being put out there now. But yeah, ultimately, I'm confident that what was there that we found is still there. There's obviously no way you can move it. The only thing you could do is try to find.
Weird. All of a sudden, I got notifications that it was no longer streaming to Facebook. Apparently, Facebook doesn't like this content. I don't know. All right. Anyways, let's continue on for a moment.
Ways of covering it up. As far as the pictographs go, I hope they're still there. I have photos of what was there.
So we know that these national parks came about from a very famous camping trip that happened in 1903 with Theodore Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir. And they brought about this idea of protecting national parks. I think it was a coming to God moment in the life of Theodore Teddy Roosevelt, because he had all these terrible things happen.
So I'm gonna pause it right there, and I wasn't aware of that as a Canadian. I don't really know all of my American history, but that is wild because then isn't Roosevelt? No, the Hoover. Damn, never mind. But the fact that they created the national parks to essentially hide each of these wild sites, and it seems that every single national park is actually the craziest ancient giant city and megalith site or pyramid mountains and all sorts of just craziness. And,
dimensional travel, not to mention wormholes and
ant people, maybe reptilian, who knows what's in these areas. Sasquatch, for sure. And some of them parks.
Right? It's and all the things of coming into a national park, you think of this happy nature place, but the disappearances and the crazy experiences that happen, and they won't release when the guy from Missing 411, when he wanted names, they told him that would cost over $1 million to give him a list of names. and he was like absolute. And he used to be a cop. What's his name? Oh my gosh, he's amazing. But he started looking into it himself. But they are very tight-lipped. You're not by law. Like, how is this? This is a national park. You have all these people missing, and we can't even get a list of names. Wow.
That's wild. I know the story. But what is there's just so much.
Oh, wait, he had a question. Portal. He says portals. There's so much missing disappearances in those parks. No, people that were missing since the early 1900s. There's all these reports of people that speak of an opening in time, and they go into a different place, but that something opens and then like it closes. So it sounds literally like a portal. That is what I'm referring to. Yes, David Polides, missing 411. Thank you, Goblin.
All right. Should we finish the rest of Timothy Hogan and Johnny Enoch, or did that cover?
I think there's like a little bit more, but
a little bit more. Okay, for sure. Finish this off, and then I've got a epic Terry Carter one to do next.
Nice.
To him in his life, a little lost due to typhoid fever from his wife and his mother. And I think that the idea that we protect national parks is a very good thing. But it makes me wonder, and I wanted to ask you about this. Do we have a lot of things that are like this story that we hear with things that might be off limits that are being protected at these national parks? Because when I was talking to the late Clifford Mahooty, who was a Zuni and Hopi elder, he told me that there was these stories of these giants that were running around at the time, and the ancient Native Americans had trapped these giants inside of caves and kind of smoked them out. And I started thinking about that when you were telling the story as well. But is there a chance that there could be all kinds of treasures and strange artifacts that are hidden inside of these national parks?
Well, I can definitely concur that there are certain Templar vaults, and we'll be getting into this more soon in other shows, but there are certain Templar vaults of Templar treasures that had been brought over here and had been deposited in certain vault locations. And some of these vault locations are, in fact, where later national parks were created at those locations. And they continue to be there, preserved in these national parks. Some people have no clue what they're walking over. So, yeah.
That is quite incredible. And in the Grand Canyon, and of course nearby in Utah, we find all kinds of strange stories. In Utah, people have talked about things like the Blind Frog Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch and strange multi-dimensional sort of encounters or portals and strange things. So there must have been some reason, if there was ancient civilizations going there, that they wanted to head into those parts. What do you think it was about the Grand Canyon that attracted the ancient Egyptians there?
Well, it's interesting. There's places of particularly Utah, but also Arizona, that tend to look they look like Egypt. I mean, it's the same landscape. I mean, it's, if you go to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt and what you're looking at, it looks identical to what you see in places near Moab, for example. And
so bang on with that. It looks like literally Jordan with Petra and lots of like Egypt, and it's wild. the Badlands. Also, anywhere Badlands. It's national parks and it's Badlands.
And there are areas, particularly there's a place called Horseshoe Canyon in Utah, which isn't too far from the Grand Canyon, where there are, I've been there too, and there are life-size figurines that look like Sumerian gods with long beards. And of course, the natives, they don't grow beards. So you need to ask yourself, who were these people that put these that captured these? Did the local natives draw people that they were seeing, or were they travelers that came there?
I'm reminded of the story we find in the Lost Secrets of the Sacred Ark that Lawrence Gardner talks about. And this relates to alchemy, which is something I know that is an expertise that you have, and we'll be discussing a lot more in upcoming shows. But in the story that Lawrence Gardner talks about in relation to modern discoveries of alchemy, he brings up the David Hudson story in the Yuma Valley of Phoenix, Arizona, where he talks about this terrible soil that they have that can't grow anything. And it turns out that he's able to make this discovery when he adds this sulfuric acid to things, and it starts to make this extraction of the monoatomic gold, the white powder of
Yeah.
gold. But also, that park that we were talking about earlier that has the Sequoia redwoods, Yosemite National Park,
Oh, Yosemite, sure.
that had John Muir, and it also had Theodore Teddy Roosevelt go there, and they had their famous camping trip where he says, "Hey, I'm going to protect national parks." Even that park has all kinds of strange stories attached to it, whether it's cryptids and extraterrestrials and strange ideas. So there's no doubt these places have been very ancient, and they've been the home to all kinds of visitations, and even giants, in fact. But I have to ask you, speaking of national parks, what about in your own backyard in Colorado? Do you suppose there was any prehistoric connections up there?
Well, there is all kinds of things in Colorado. There are 30 sites that I've visited around Colorado that actually have Celtic Ogham writing on it, which is translatable. Sadly, one of the sites that I actually did a dig for at the museum, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, uh, right around the same time, actually, that I went to the Grand Canyon. There was
1997.
right, 1997. There was shortly thereafter, somebody had destroyed and defaced all of this Celtic, where this Celtic writing was, and I still have photos of the Ogham writing that was there, and in fact, I even published some of them in my book, Revelation of the Holy Grail, under the pen name Chevalier Emerist. But all of that's since been destroyed. But there still are several sites around Colorado, and there are also sites along the Arkansas River going from Oklahoma. So Phoenician writing, and there are carvings of Anubis. So here's another, so we see the same, you can almost trace, I think you can almost trace how they traveled. Like they probably came in along the eastern coast of the United States, went into the Gulf of
They traveled beneath the earth.
Mexico,
God.
into the Mississippi River. Back then, the Mississippi River all the way up into Colorado. And then from there, they just went over the mountains into Arizona, into the Grand Canyon area.
That makes perfect sense. But
Yeah.
are you sure that Phoenician writing isn't from when our mutual friend Kareem El Kousa visited you in America? They just kind of did a cheeky 1-2 on the walls. But
Yeah.
no, it is rather amazing. I mean, I know another friend of yours, Graham Hancock, who I knew, who's a wonderful guy, and just lovely when I've talked to him before, and I really enjoyed his new documentary, The Ancient Apocalypse, on Netflix, and his
Great.
books are brilliant. But
Fantastic.
you are not only friends with him, but you're mentioned, by the way, in his books and in Magicians of the Gods.
I am, yeah. So I helped Graham.
All right, so I'm gonna stop that one there. And amazing news! I found the folder of pictures.
Yes.
That was
You.
or before we started the show. But while I get that ready, first we're going to, that was an amazing story. Now we're going to quickly play a Terry Carter episode story that is pretty much parallel to what we just heard there, and another supporting piece of evidence. And then we're going to look at a few different of more locations throughout the Grand Canyon and pyramids and such that are there. And this one has to do with the legend of the Aztec gold, and did the Mormons get it?
Montezuma's treasure, according to an old
God, I love the way he talks.
hunter,
I love
Richard
it.
Walburn. I became acquainted with Richard in the early 90s. He wrote about treasure stories in the treasure magazines, and he always put out a great story. But
And shit, I almost forgot. Thank you, brother John Sup, so much for the super chats. I greatly appreciate it for the support. Thank you, and everyone, thank you.
I wanted to know where he came up with these stories, because some of these stories didn't really fit with the history I knew. And he said history had been altered. Well, what he did was he developed a treasure locating device that he called NERS, Natural Earth Rejection Syndrome. And he said what would happen was that if you took a treasure that came from, say, Mexico and dropped it off in Utah, buried it in the ground, because it didn't come from that area, the Earth tried to reject it with a magnetic field, and he was able to pick up that magnetic field with his equipment. Kind of like hot rocks are, these hot rocks, they came from a different area. They was deposited by either glaciers or some other reason. And when you detect them, because they're not from that area, they go off as if they're metal, but they're not. They're just not from that area. One of the many treasures that Richard claimed to have found the location to with his equipment was Montezuma's treasure in southern Utah. Richard was kind of a history buff, and he always wanted to know, how did that treasure end up being there? So he kind of backtracked and re-engineered and studied the history to figure out what went on and why the treasure was where it was at. The history that he came up with for this Montezuma's treasure in southern Utah is crazy, and it deals with the Mormons. I'll let you listen to his story here of how he figured this happened. I don't know that I buy into this, but it's an interesting story anyway. But he does give the location of where he says Montezuma's treasure is at. After Richard's wife passed away, he just kind of fell off the earth. So I went to California and tried tracking him down because I hadn't heard from him for quite a few years. And I found him. My goal was to get a few interviews out of him because he had a lot of great stories and he was a wealth of information. But sadly, Richard had gotten dementia, and so all his faculties wasn't there. He could remember some of the stuffs, and he was still have a little bit of a conversation, but nothing like the old Richard used to be. Shortly after I met with Richard, he passed away. So he's been passed away now for a few years. But over the course from the 90s up until he kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, he wrote me all kinds of letters with all kinds of great stories and information. So from time to time, I'll be sharing some of them. So anyways, with that said, we'll dive into this video and hear his story, but let me know what you think. Do you think this story he's come up with is pretty far-fetched, or do you think it's possibility that this history and where the location of Montezuma's treasure is could be real? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let the rest of us know what you think. And don't forget to smash the like button. I don't know if it helps me with YouTube or not, but it sure makes me feel better. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
In this
God, I
area
love
of
him.
American history in modern times, we're going to bump into Mormons, because the Mormons were the only whites on the high plains of Utah 150 years ago. I find that Mormon history is interesting reading. Mormon history deals with an ostracized people that survived very well in wilderness wasteland. They got along marvelously with the Indians and other people. They were successful survivors and happy people. They were very secretive to a point of absurdity about much of their past experiences. Let's jump in and see what we can learn about the Aztec depository from one Mormon's secret experience. I will exclude the Lost Roads mine from this discussion as I can't prove that it is any way related to this Aztec temple, although pure logic dictates that it does. All of the available Gale Rhodes books don't shed any light on the Thomas Rhodes mine's issue with the Aztec depository either. I will take a knife and cut one small sliver of history from the Mormon culture and select the man that knew about the Aztec depository and where it was located. He may be the only white man that knew of the Aztec depository, but I suspect that Thomas Rhodes knew about it too. But this is another tangent, as I can't prove that these two men were involved at the same time and at the same place. Although that information may be true, but secreted somewhere away from my eyes. Mormon secrets are guarded well, I am told. Thomas Rhodes was particularly secretive, as Mormon lives depended on his secrecy. Mormons carried secrets to their death, but they left clues by just living life itself. I really feel that the gold for the Mormon coinage in 1850, as well as the wealth of the early Mormon church, came from the Aztec depository. I can't prove this yet, therefore I'll just let this possibility hang loose. There are others that believe this possibility too, but their vision has the Aztec depository in the Uinta Mountains of Utah. This is not where the Aztec depository rests. Also, I might add that Thomas Rhodes was believed to have gotten the secret gold of the Utes in the Uinta Mountains, but no one has proven that to be a fact either. We know the Mormons got the Utes' sacred gold somewhere, and this is the only Ute sacred gold that I know of personally, and this is the Aztec depository or the new temple of Quetzalcoatl, possible ancestors of the Ute Indians. There is the legend of Kareshin-Ob too, and that is in the Uinta Mountain area. I don't think the two names are one and the same place, but perhaps so. I'm just not positive about this possible fact yet. Now back to John Lee's story. History will call John Doyle Lee a murderer, renegade, and a charlatan of the Mormon people. What a strange epitaph for a Mormon that single-handedly established two Southern Plains Mormon cities successfully. He provided these cities with trade gold and protected these cities from danger. He was well loved by these people. He obviously was a godsend to them. What could have caused him to risk his reputation with these people and the Mormon church and put them under the United States government scrutiny? John Lee had no other choice in his actions, and he had plenty of support for his decision. Here is the untold story of John Doyle Lee. It perhaps is secret information in the Mormon files, too. If you read The Life of John Doyle Lee by Juanita Brooks, you will see what a very fine man John Lee was and the seemingly impossible accomplishments he was able to accomplish. We would all look better in this life with the early reputation of John Lee. The Mormons would not have survived if it had not been for the bond between the Ute Indians and the Mormons. The Mormons gave the Utes food from their harvests, and the Utes gave them land to live on in peace, plus all of the gold that they needed for their church and coinage. This was a good relationship, and it lasted for years peacefully. The Indians had never known a relationship like this with any white men anywhere. Because of the food share that the Utes received from the Mormons plus the Brotherhood, eventually the Utes allowed Thomas Rhodes and later Caleb Rhodes secretly to take all of the gold that they wanted for their early Mormon coinage in 1850. These secret coffers of the Utes still remain secret, and some of these sources are said to be in the Uinta Mountains. I don't know this to be true. It is true that the Uinta Mountains housed a Spanish mining galleria there from the artifacts that have been found over the years. There was plenty of gold mined there by the Spanish occupation of Ute lands. But the Aztec depository was present long before these events took place in Utah history. The same trust was given to John Lee by the Utes as given to Thomas Rhodes. This is why the Mormon citizens always thought John Lee had a rich mine. What could have possibly explained where all of the gold came from? Lee could not tell them the truth, nor could Thomas Rhodes. Unfortunately, some debts do become due in time. This was the downfall of John Lee. A twist of fate that should never have occurred happened in 1857. The situation was a catch-22, and John Lee just fell into the snare of it. Since the 1520s, all of the Indians in this area had known about the Aztec depository. After all, some of these Indians were Aztec descendants. They had guarded the depository for over 300 years when they met and befriended John Lee. John Lee was entrusted with the protection of the Aztec depository, I think, for the gold that he was given out of the Aztec depository. The Aztec depository was given to John Lee's protection. He alone was responsible for it, and he alone would pay if an Indian trust was broken. The safety of the
I'm pausing it there for a couple to discuss a couple things that have gone on so far in this story. One being the fact that there's the missing mine that all of the gold supposedly came from for the initial Mormon gold coinage that banked and funded the church and the people. And that there's also the missing Aztec gold of Montezuma's treasure and all of that. And that they're saying that the Ute Indians in this area were the ones that were entrusted to it, and that they entrusted one depository of it to this John Lee. And that's another interesting sync right there. It's like, is that why John Levi came up with the YouTube name John Levi? Because apparently that's not actually his real name. Interesting, right? Never know. Oh, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
I was eating.
Fair. Enjoying it. Fair enough. Hey, she eating popcorn. She muted. She enjoying the video. So let's get back to it.
The depository was his direct responsibility as the only white man that history to me dictates that Lee has seen the Aztec depository. Everything went fine for John Lee for many years until September 1857. A very large wagon train of 140 emigrants was passing near the cliffs of the depository. The Utes, I feel, called a secret meeting and told John Lee that some of the members of the wagon train were seen in the sacred Quetzalcoatl Temple Canyon. John Lee was speechless because he knew it was his responsibility to guard the depository for the kindness given to him by the Utes. Without this, the Mormons would not have been allowed to settle here. John Lee frantically said, "Perhaps they went into the canyon to pick up pretty rocks." The Paiutes were outraged at Lee's response. Whatever the reason, they shouted, "The temple has been violated." John said, "What must I do to engender peace again with you?" The Paiutes said, "We want you to kill all members of the wagon train to guarantee the secrecy of our secret." John Lee said, "I will not do this." The Paiutes said, "Then we must kill all of your people in payment for the violation of an honored trust with us." I feel this is what John Lee did. John Lee looked at the 140 lives of the emigrant strangers as a better choice than seeing God-fearing Mormons die with no knowledge of why their lives had been taken. John Lee seeing the death of his own people would have been too hard for John Lee to bear. John delivered this demand of the Utes to the church elders for their consideration. The elders agreed to follow out the Utes' demands to the letter. According to the rest of the world, looking back on John Lee today, this is probably where the Mormons made one of their biggest mistakes. How can a man of God justify who dies needlessly and mercilessly regardless of pressure? Yet, whatever the decision, it would have been a bloodbath one way or the other anyway, one might say. So in my opinion, September 7th, 1857, a large group of Mormons disguised as Indians murdered 140 emigrants, except 17 children, in the honor of Quetzalcoatl and the fire god attribute. Blood is still flowing over that Aztec gold after 327 years of history since the Aztec gold was cached. Today, 475 years after the Aztec gold was cached, I am not certain how much gold remains in the Aztec depository. This fortune was given to trusted Mormons for their coinage and their church needs by the Utes. Did the Mormons use 25 tons of this priceless temple plate? An agrarian people living in an area where hardly rocks would grow would not be expected to have a great wealth in gold. Yet when this golden truth of gold was learned, and partially because polygamy, the U.S. government wanted to punt the Mormons out of this area by opening up this area to noble metal mining. John Lee fled the Mormon cities knowing that his life would be sacrificed for the debt that he paid in exchange for his people's safety. He alone would carry this secret and the burden of responsibility to his death to keep his promise with the Utes. In March 1877, 20 years after the massacre, John Lee would be executed for these murders and the secret of this terrible affair. the Aztec depository, would be safe forever. The backup historical proof for this discovery took years of research work. I feel this is exactly what happened, though history made Lee out to be a monster. Still searchers search for the legendary lost John Lee mine. There isn't any mine, there never was any mine. Yet John Lee probably said there was a mine to disguise and dilute the real place the gold had come from. It was a reasonable thing to tell curious people without betraying a trust. In this new understanding, John Lee was truly a hero to his people, as I see it, whether or not I personally agree with his choice to murder those 140 people. The Quetzalcoatl Temple. I know that there will be some people that will disagree with my opinion. I have read that secretly at least one other man has actually physically found the Aztec depository within the last few years. Although this forum's post, of course, didn't suggest where he had found the depository except north of St. George. Now we know where the area is that this man found his Aztec gold. It has to be within the area of the Aztec Quetzalcoatl Temple. This new posted Aztec gold find pleases me to hear. Actually, in all honesty, this collection really belongs to Mexico City, I feel, as this is where the artifacts came from. Whatever occurs, these priceless temple plates should now glitter in the light of day, I feel. People can appreciate this art and learn from it. I will tell you all that I personally know about the Aztec Temple of Quetzalcoatl. I have wanted to tell somebody about this for years, but darn it, no one showed up.
All right, so this is some crazy details, and you actually get the real photos of the butte, I believe. Maybe it's a mesa, but I believe it's a butte, and what park and what road to go to, and where this supposed one stash was, or possibly some of still is.
What an experience the moment of discovery is. I felt an energy that I cannot describe, and I was the only one there. I had no idea what I had found. After this mysterious and very emotional experience, sort of in a daze, I drove home. I knew I had discovered something important, but I didn't have a clue what it was. I spent only 30 minutes in the library to find out what I had discovered. This was the information that Cortez and Coronado murdered to try to obtain. And it is the riddle that Freddie Crystal hoped to achieve as well. You cannot possibly understand the feelings that I had in the public library holding that book that hundreds of people before me had held and read. The information that I had obtained was not written in the book, nor was it known by the author that wrote the book. The riddle was in the photographs within the book that I was holding that was invisible to the camera that took the pictures for publication. Don't ask me why I thought what I had seen in Utah was somehow Aztec related. I just felt that it was a beckoning whim, I guess. A gut feeling, if you will. That sixth sense in all of us. I thumbed through the pictures of the temples in Mexico City. Then, as if one moment in time was frozen, I stared starkly at one picture in the book. It was a picture of the Quetzalcoatl Temple. My mouth fell open. There it was, I muttered to myself as other people in the library glanced curiously my way. I was looking in a book about Mexico City. Yet what I had just seen in this book, I had just seen in Utah. Am I asleep? I murmured. After the priceless information I had obtained, I took a crash course in Aztec mythology. Of course, I realized what was in the temple in Utah, even though it was a natural edifice. I needed at least a second opinion. Much of what I had experienced, after all, was commonly known Aztec history. I was so excited. I wrote hundreds of people. I wrote to historians, archaeologists, and movie producers. With sore fingers from writing, I waited for responses. There were no responses. In many ways, this field of interest seems to be a one-way battle. Down. This is why I have set these records free for all to ponder and to appreciate today. Since so much of our later history was derived by Cortez's gold-seeking and later Coronado's murderous and destructive fiasco searching for this very new Quetzalcoatl temple disgraced and ruined socially forever. The shot put man. An acquaintance of mine, Terry Carter, told me that if I ever published anything, I could use his discovery, the shot put man. My acquaintance named this sandstone art the shot put man.
And shout out to Terry Carter and his shot put man discovery. He actually discovered it hiking, I believe, in well, he's about to tell you. So shout out to the shot put man.
Shot put.
The shot put man is a name that was given to this find by Terry Carter near the new Quetzalcoatl temple. This figure is fashioned from sandstone and is shallower than the surrounding sandstone surface. This figure may be the only proof of the Aztec temple of Quetzalcoatl other than the Quetzalcoatl temple's depiction of the sun flame with the attribute of the occult seven cross interjected with Aztec mythology itself. The figure is of a muscular man with one hand appearing to be a ball or globe. The head of this figure is a cross, not a human head. This was confusing for a while until I got the association of the flame god attribute of Quetzalcoatl in the seven cross temple example picture number 8. My understanding of this means that the occult meaning of Quetzalcoatl mean a cross also. If so, then the seventh chakras, or head of this muscle man, is god or temple symbolized as a physical cross. The Aztec have cleverly depicted this meaning as cross. And the seventh cross is the sun flame symbol of Quetzalcoatl, isn't it? So the Aztec figure, the shot-put man in sand, has told us we have found the new temple of Quetzalcoatl. And the new temple of Quetzalcoatl happens to be the attribute of the Temple of Seven, which physically is the seventh of seven mountains, and the Quetzalcoatl temple is in the symbol of the sun flame. This seems to be the correct interpretation as I see it. Just exactly why is the hand that's a ball or globe? Because this is the sum which is the flame symbol for the actual Quetzalcoatl temple. The shot-put man shows us two symbols, sun and cross. Both of these symbols together mean the Quetzalcoatl sun flame temple or Aztec depository. As of the 1520s, this Quetzalcoatl temple now replaced the Quetzalcoatl temple in Tenochtitlan. The eye is another symbol submitted by the same associate found near the temple. It is quite small, for above it is a roll of film for sizing forming a black shadow. Also not pictured is a stone held up off of another stone by three smaller rocks. Neither of these two symbols do I know the meanings of. Perhaps readers do. It is very clear to me that the depository has easy access because key Utes and Mormons have taken gold out of the depository numerous times, in my opinion. The Aztecs became masters of masonry. They could have put the depository vault within this area anywhere. You have learned the important significance of some Aztec history. Much of this meaning has baffled many searchers of the Aztec depository. You may have some idea of what it will take to recover the incredible legacy. Do not ignore the total structure of the temple for other possible locations for the Aztec depository room. The fact is, what will someday be found within this temple area was hand-hauled 2,000 agonizing miles by men. This still is very difficult to comprehend today. Many of these people died, and many local Indian tribes assisted the Aztecs in their hour of need. It was a selfless sacrifice that few people realize today. The Aztecs were once the highest evolved civilization on this hemisphere that once existed. The Aztecs tried to cling on to what they had built and achieved in the Uinta Mountains. They loved their cultural way of life just as we love our country. Is this the time for these artifacts to see a new world? Will our world welcome these artifacts and honor them and understand them? I hope so. The Quetzalcoatl Temple. Until this story, the Quetzalcoatl Temple has been kept a secret by hundreds of Paiute Indians, plus a couple of white people to boot. I have broken this silence because I have taken no oath to secrecy. I personally think that enough time has passed to once again have these artifacts see the light of day. I fail to see how allowing them to rot in the ground by silence or ignorance serves anyone. I know that there will be some people that will disagree with my opinion, especially the law that controls this land. These one-of-a-kind recovered pieces may travel around the world and be sold anywhere. Some artifacts may need to be melted down because of legal lust by people of the law. Whatever occurs, these priceless temple plates should now see the light of day. People can appreciate this art and learn from it, whether this is in photographs or the original objects themselves. I have drawn a zero in my efforts to secure these artifacts because I do not possess all of the talents necessary for a safe and secret recovery. Perhaps you will have more talent in this enterprise and more funds than I had available to me. I will tell you all that I know about the Holy Temple of Quetzalcoatl. In 1984, when I was standing motionless at the end of the Zion National Park Road, I was looking directly at Shuntavi Butte. I was speechless and awestruck in a starstruck daze. What an experience the moment of discovery is. I felt an energy that I cannot describe, and I was the only one there. This was the information that Cortez killed to try to obtain, and the riddle that Freddie Crystal hoped to achieve. Don't ask me why I thought what I had seen in Utah was somehow Aztec-related. I just felt that it was. This is why I am setting the record straight, by speechless and awestruck. Perhaps you will have more talent in this enterprise and more funds than I had available to me. I will tell you all that I know about the Holy Temple of Quetzalcoatl. In 1984,
Right here, this butte, I believe, is where it actually is. And I'm just pretty sure there's a couple more actual pictures of it coming right up.
Before, when I was standing motionless at the end of the Zion National Park Road, I was looking directly at Shuntavi Butte. I was speechless and awestruck in a starstruck daze. What an experience the moment of discovery is. I felt an energy that I cannot describe, and I was the only one there. This was the information that Cortez killed to try to obtain, and the riddle that Freddie Crystal hoped to achieve. Don't ask me why I thought what I had seen in Utah was somehow Aztec-related. I just felt that it was. This is why I am setting the record straight. By the ranger station in Kolob Canyon, there is a road that goes only 5 miles. This road dead ends at a circle overlooking a steep 600-foot canyon and the Aztec depository beyond, Shuntavi Butte. You must park at the circle or at the John Lee Trail sign to hike down in the canyon. You must pack in your equipment and start negotiating the steep, brush-covered slope of the temple. Obviously, you must be in good health. Being a good mountain climber would be a great talent, too. But any serious non-professional climber can reach the symbolic flat platform of the sacrifice table of the Quetzalcoatl Temple. From this point, everything is straight standing walls. Where within the temple is the gold? The perfect place by Aztec mythology is right behind the sacrifice flat adjoining the temple. This is where the entrance would normally be in the Quetzalcoatl Temple in Mexico City. Unless you find masonry workings in this area, it is obvious to me that the burial point is in another part of the temple. It's a large overall area to search. It is very clear to me that the depository has easy access because key Paiutes and Mormons have taken gold out of the depository numerous times. The only obvious non-vulnerable point would be a point up the wall by rope or ladder. Remember, the Aztecs were masters of masonry. Here is what I found out. One February, when the ranger station was closed, I sent a crew of mountain climbers up there. They spent 1 week at the sacrifice flat. They inspected the temple for anything weird. At the end of the temple flat, on the northeast side, a large pinnacle lays gently against the temple wall. Just below this point, where the pinnacle touches the wall, is a room in the dark shadows. The climbers could see the shore posts. Is this the depository? Maybe. If so, this location seems to be over 100 feet above the temple flat in the shadows of a leaning pinnacle. I may never know because the climbers anchored a rope on the room shelf that was too thin. No climber would chance the climb with the low rope size. This room is always in the dark, even at high noon. Below this point is fresh-looking masonry thrown down the canyon. Even today, after 400 years, this erosion looks fresh. If this is the depository, apparently the Aztecs covered this fresh masonry by caving in part of the wall so that the overburden would look natural. If this room, under the pinnacle, is the Aztec depository, I will not suggest how the Aztecs got the heavy gold in the room. The Aztecs were builders. It could be done. Now you have learned the important significance of some Aztec history.
All right. I'm going to pause that there. And I will post the link in the live chat one more time for Terry Carter. And once again, just another story of these golden records, these golden halls in the Americas, and Aztec treasure, which is most likely inherited from a time much before that. And let's go to some more pictures of this area, or general area. And it extends. This is in Colorado. This is it Giants Playground, or is that Julie Ryder's one?
Garden of the Gods, the one in Colorado.
Garden of the Gods. Yes, you got it. Garden of the Gods, indeed, correct. It is wild, and like, where is this? So there's actually, like, what is this monolith place? And this was a hotel at the top of the pass of Garden of the Gods, and that this hotel is literally built in to whatever this structure area is. And this looks pretty carved and potentially Well, why is it called Garden of the Gods unless it was indeed a Garden of the Gods? And here we have the Grand Canyon, and this is the, well, temples of the gods, the city. It's insane. Every single one of them
It looks like
is,
there's like a piece on each four corners of that last one you were just looking at. When you zoom out, see
yeah,
that on the corners?
yeah, right, exactly, exactly. And then it was probably flooded up into this layer, or maybe to here, or something like that, throughout all of them. So you would have just had a paradise, really, empowering mountain city and inner sea, freshwater sea. Oops, wrong way. Another one, I believe, of
Don't you get like a world capital vibe from this place? Like the pinnacle of like the planet? I do.
right. I do too. It's got giant and titan all over it.
You get like a similar kind of energy at like Mount Kalish.
Exactly. Not sure where that one is. Also not sure on that. Ooh, look at what we got here. Some ancient India, probably. This definitely in India. Just wild. Like, I wonder what it connects to, like what does that build out to? So here's another one of these passes, but here we go. This is also on that Garden of the Gods, and look at this. I say that's got to be a giant face, no?
Wow.
And here you go with the big old gaping hole on Isis Temple before they went in and built a perfect wall from a plane crash.
Wait, say that again?
So this is the entrance that was on Isis Temple that in, I believe it was the 1950s, maybe the early 60s, but I believe 50s, that there was this famous like
Plane crash.
airplane
Yeah.
crash, like the giant recovery and stuff. And then afterwards, ever since, this has been covered up with a giant wall.
What's interesting is like, wasn't it a plane by a defense contracting place? Wasn't it like a Lockheed? I'd have to look it up.
I do believe so, and that would make sense because then they'd get the contract to go in and build the wall.
Right, like it was a strategic crash, like, oh, because then when we go to clean it up, we can have access there. Boom. That'd be a great strategy. It's a little extreme.
Another one, like in these passes, these areas that were turned into native reserves, but that were these focal points of their resistance in the wars when they were originally invaded. So
okay, a United Airlines struck a Trans World Airlines Lockheed Super Constellation. Okay. United Airlines struck a Lockheed one.
Interesting. Or so they say. I believe this is in the US, and if so, it's like this is actually like a castle sort of thing. Like this is brick and looks like I don't know.
I didn't see it. Oh wow. Aren't those all over? Like The megaliths,
Oh
those
yeah,
imprints.
the T cuts, and yeah, it's wild, and you have to see them like parallel to the ground. If it's perpendicular, if it's on the side, and I believe it was, oh my god, who is the main ancient alien guy?
Giorgio?
No, the other one. David Hatcher's Childress, pointing out in one of the major Peru sites, one of these giant, like 4 or 5, either 100 or maybe even 1,000-ton blocks that had a T cut on the side on top of a mountain. And it's like, this, it had no function. Like, it's wrong. It would have been, that had to have been flipped, like it's crazy. And this one I love because it's like this right here. That's a magnetron, essentially. Why is like the underworld a magnetron? What sort of portal technology do we have going on here?
I love that. It's like Tartarus. I'm telling you, there's all kinds of different underworlds beneath us before you get to a really good part.
Like the honeycomb dimensional Earth.
Are those ants? Interesting. That's probably got a lot of truth right there. Or those other footprints.
Oh.
And look at like the shaman, like he's got a snake on his head.
Yeah, snake. This guy's got what looks like to be a giant crab or cockroach or something. This wild stuff. Bird or eagle? Phoenix, maybe? And the two guys in here, we got like a turtle snake or a turtle guy. Coyote guy, maybe? Weird.
Like little fairies in there.
Oh,
like ant colonies colonizing inner Earth.
just the heads. The heads coming out of it. Interesting. And look at this one. Like,
That reminds me of Owl Rock in Arizona. Where's that one?
This is in the Grand Canyon as well, I believe, in the main pyramid area. And look behind it, like perfect pyramid, pretty perfect looking pyramid building structure. Another couple, like look at all these what look like monoliths back here, here and here. Like,
I wonder how many people lived there.
Or possibly still live there. Now, if that is made of gold, that's expensive, so it's serving a purpose. And
that's very Sphinx-like. Very Sphinx-like.
Yeah, I believe this one is also in Garden of the Gods. And where is it now? Like, look at the little shack. Just all we could get up here is your little travel shack, and then how many miles until you get to that hotel built into the Pyramid Cave Hotel at the top. That has got to be a device.
Mm-hmm. Look at the shape of his head.
Yeah, good call. history. And like, look at this language right here, all carved in these hieroglyphics.
You never hear too many people talking about that Quetzalcoatl had a twin brother.
Right? We're gonna have
It's
to get
almost
into
it's like,
that.
is that the original Cain and Abel? Enki and Enlil?
Yes, it is. I suspect so. This is Nevada at Pyramid Lake. And this is supposed Sphinx, and this like hollow ball next to it. Very. Then there's the pyramids, I believe, just out into the lake from it.
I would think like if some of these are statues, where it's at and where it would be looking is like a huge clue. What's beneath it and where it is facing and would be significant.
Oh yeah, it's facing. It's this there's like going straight out to the pyramid. It's like a little walkway. I've got a
Wait,
couple
can you
more
go to the
pictures
last?
that'll
Can
illustrate
you go
it.
to the last picture? Can you go to the picture before this that you just? Okay, yeah, yeah.
Not
That's
sure where this one is. Maybe Italy or Turkey.
okay. Dub selector wanted to see that one again.
And then we have the Mexican city of the gods, Teotihuacan. This is what it was originally found as.
Don't they say they like played soccer there for their lives, or something like soccer?
Yeah,
And whoever won was the one to get sacrificed, right? It's like, wait a second, the winner dies.
doesn't make sense. And then once excavated, like it was just a bunch of mounds and a mountain. This place, wherever it is, I need to find out and get the intel on it, because there's video I've seen where they actually are jackhammering in, and there's like a giant staircase that it goes into the mountain, and it's quite wild. Oh yeah. Like, whatever happened to this giant tablet right on the front of the Sphinx?
Wasn't I think it was like looted by the 40s, right?
Yeah, so, and then look at this. This is also in what was it? Playground or
Garden of the Gods.
Garden of the Gods in Colorado, the giant
Wow, they had
amphitheater.
oh my gosh.
Like, this is a supposed natural amphitheater, perfect amphitheater still used today, but more developed. But it's like, yeah, no, this, I guarantee you, the Ottoman amphitheater in the Grand Canyon is identical to this one in Playground or Garden of the Gods, and that it's from a previous civilization.
Whoa, where's that? Garden of the Gods as well?
No, I believe. I'm not actually sure on this one. Not actually sure. Maybe not though. I feel further south, but like, look at these, just elongated skull hub potentially. Like, okay, wild. Why did we blow all of those up in the Vietnam and Korean Wars?
They're like, you would be able to do sound alchemy for way too many miles, way too far of a distance.
Right. Get that bowl spinning and ringing and resonating, and you might be traveling to the moon.
Is that one of the hidden pyramids in China?
No, I believe this is in the Amazon that are now being found.
On LiDAR, right? They're finding all kinds of them.
Yeah, and like now they're exploring these sites with LiDAR, and it's like apparently it covers the whole, like just like hundreds of square kilometers or miles or something. It's just nuts. Oh, and then we got some good old buried star footage. And still,
It's got to make the crops grow better.
right? Like why it's so covered in jungle and stuff so quick. Another mountain pyramid. Ooh, good old Bosnian pyramids and some of the tunnels and waterways within them. This I have to explore. Gotta get there. All right, also Grand Canyon.
Wow. It like takes my breath away no matter how many times I look at it.
Right?
It's interesting, all these Mary Magdalene churches everywhere. Like the most beautiful points of the city.
Peru, some of the Nazca lines. We just sheared the top off of these mountains. No big deal. That is this. Rome, maybe? I'm not sure. This is like Baghdad or Tehran or no. It's in Iraq. It's right in the center. Basra, maybe? No. Like, it's actually got some wireage on it, just not connecting to anything. Like these ones are mind blowing. Of course, we've got, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this one is the Japanese Disney castle is what we're being told and sold this one as. And like how identical it is to the Quebec City one that's like supposedly a rail freaking hotel. Like it's wild.
What?
These guys this is Egypt, I believe, and they used to sing or something. But look at the background. Look at that. Like that is identical to the Grand Canyon. And Moab. All this terracing.
Angel's Landing looks so beautiful.
All right, look at these guys. Like, come on. You got like a giant, a wizard, and a big dude. Or something like. That's in America. This might be Siberia. This probably is Siberia. Just a giant, like, what, capacitor or insulator? Like, these are what are on power lines.
What if that was like their AI system that they programmed and like would ask them questions and they would organize all their information and help operate?
Ooh, right? Like it's got like a hologram interface or something going on.
Yeah, we're looking at it like, what? Are they worshiping? Are they getting heat? Are they warming their hands? But What
For
if,
all we know, there was like this hologram interface that was painted on that has since like
right.
washed off or been like intentionally taken off or something like that. Like,
Like they're
got
totally gaming right now. They're standing
right
up gaming, interfacing with it
straight up.
with their eye.
This is this. Don't. Oh man, that is 3rd gen Apple freaking whatever their new goggle thing is, virtual reality. Like, what? They've got the earpiece thing going on. Like, look, they're wearing helmets with like radios.
Mhm.
Oh, that's what that looks like. That looks like, you know, Bluetooth in Egyptian times. And this is the leftover of one of those because would have had all sorts of crazy plasma holographic interface. Oh, maybe. This always blows my mind. Oh, we just have 4 stories, 5 stories underneath everything. I think Belarus, could be wrong, could be anywhere in Europe, maybe Asia, maybe even the US. I don't know. Don't want to offend anyone, but that's wild.
Does it look like men guarding like the top part of it?
Oh yeah,
Or-
it was supposedly some memorial, and it's like a war memorial. It's like I just don't know. Looks a lot older. Looks repurposed, reclaimed potentially.
Wow.
Few photos. I think this is Dresden. Could be wrong, but pretty sure.
Didn't Dresden get hit bombed pretty hard? Like they had some of the most
More than-
amazing.
Yeah, it was insane. It was like some of the harshest bombings ever. Like, what are on the actual walls?
So it was like basically the most healing was going down there.
right? Like, well, that's just nuts.
Look at all that glass.
Glass and metal and crazy stone. And the size of the people. This is 3 stories. And we don't even get close to the top. It's wild. Little active mud flood going on. All right, back to Garden of the Gods. So it's like this might be the backside of what that hotel was built into.
I wish that
And-
hotel was still there. That'd be so
Right, like-
magical.
Why was it destroyed? And it, right? Like, what is there now? Where is this place? What happened to it all? Oh, Isis temple painted after the wall. This place, like, where is this? I need to visit this place.
Wow.
Just gold. Yeah, like, look at this. Croatia, Romania, New Zealand, Egypt, and there's the second one in Egypt, Crimea, Pakistan, Russia, and Argentina, and that doesn't even have the Nevada Pyramid Lake one. Fascinating. Croatia.
Yeah, that's very that is
Like,
very
what?
Egyptian looking, the Croatian.
Yeah. I'm gonna need to check that out. And where is this? And what is this? Is that like an aquifer or something?
The
Like
aqueducts were designed
aqueduct.
like where it looked like that.
Oh
And
no, train. Is it train or aqueduct? And did they repurpose aqueducts as trains potentially?
like following that line, right?
Yeah, through the already built tunnel, but maybe.
I'll see them like work on a hill in California, and like these ancient like pipelines are in there. You could see.
You gotta take some pictures of that, sister.
I have so many.
Well, next episodes, please do share. Couldn't even fill it with water if we tried today, probably.
Where's that star fort? That's a big star fort.
I'm guessing Netherlands, maybe Germany, maybe Holland, maybe Italy. I don't know.
That one's in Holland, right? That one right there.
I believe so. Ooh, shout out to David Stig. He is actually on his way here right now, the Eye of the Sahara.
He is a pistol.
He is in Morocco. He is in Morocco right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Go get him, Stig. He's got so much fire and passion. I love it.
Right? He's amazing. Another, like, what is this? A Garden of the Gods. Looks like you can enter and walk in for sure. And are these some figures?
That looks like an old tree, like, doesn't it? Like it was.
Potentially, yeah, potentially. Some carved titans into it. Like,
From what I understand, a lot of those old trees that were enormous were just absolutely magical.
Yeah, I would believe so. And could that be what these are the bottoms of? What started out, maybe?
Well, in the root systems of how it goes in a hollowed out tree, of the caverns and tunnels it can make.
Like, I want to see something like that still exists get hit by lightning, or yeah, I want to see what happened. Lightning. 1900. It was just the mountain hill. And where is this?
Looks Mongolian like.
Right? That's what I was thinking. Like, absolutely epic and huge. More Nazca. I bet you that we could probably find one of these in a bankrupt European country for like $1 and just like buy a castle.
That's the new level up. All right, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to get a star for it. We're all going there. We're going to start a community.
Let's commune a star for it, y'all.
Why does that sound so ideal to me, though? That really does sound like amazing. I'd be so down.
You've got 4 layers of moats between you and the creeps, and you've got like a castle with gardens to work, the most epic gardens and moats ever to work with. Like, we'd be stupid not to. Just the canoeing You're kayaking alone. Wrong way. Pumapunku and Sumerian. There's some Sumerian and Pumapunku, or cuneiform.
Again, they all traveled beneath the earth. That's so interesting how large, though, Nefertiti's depicted.
Yeah, and the size of them heads.
She's like, I will raise some hybrids.
Right? Look at her hands. Weird. See, now I wonder, this so-called vanilla sky, is it just because there was mist? Like, because, like, the mist and the charged sky, you get, like, electricity in the clouds. And was it just a bunch of clouds being charged while these were more active? And you just had mist and moisture around. Everything was a cloud.
Hmm. Whoa.
Where are we here? The mouth of one of the rivers and canyons into the lake. This looks like the ruins of a little village city. Now in the flood area, and look at this. That could be pretty Sphinx-like right here. Face going outwards. Maybe. Very pyramidal. Another building.
Is where's that at? That one?
I am not 100% sure, so I don't want to make any claims. And what the hell is this over here? Like, is that new city stuff, or is, like, that's got to be a city? Like, are you freaking kidding me? That's got to be a city. If that is not a city, what the fuck are we looking at? Like, what? What? What the What is that, Julia? What are we looking at?
Wait, zoom out a little bit.
So here we have whatever.
I feel is that like right above to the right of Grand Canyon?
Could be. I suspect
Where
so.
that
'Cause look,
it's
over
like
here
this.
we have all this water.
There's that maze part of the
dam,
like,
maybe.
Like up or right where it becomes Utah, like right above it.
You would have a much better idea than me, but whatever this is, like, oops, that was wild. That's wild. Like,
Is it Labyrinth? Is it Labyrinth Cave? I gotta look it up. It's gonna bother me.
because this looks like part water. Yeah, this is water because there's the white stain of it going up and down, and then
Like I see it, I just don't remember the name of what it's called. I gotta go to Google Earth. I think it's Labyrinth Canyon.
Labyrinth Canyon, yeah, because it's
Is that
just
what
like
it's?
a city of freaking caves. Like
Labyrinth Canyon, Utah. I feel like it's that, but hold on, I gotta look on it at a map. On a map.
what?
When I saw it, that's what I felt. But
Right, that looks like regularly spaced windows. It's like that's so fucking weird.
yeah, there's green Labyrinth Canyon. It does. I'm looking at a map. It does swing around there.
Like, what is this? Snake River, Michael Joshua Lewis is saying? Or near Lake Mead? Yeah, I'm thinking like, is this bordering Lake Mead? Like,
yeah, but
what is Lake Mead covering up? Like, what?
Or is that Lake Powell? Is that Lake Powell?
I don't know. Wait, we got to look into this because that is some wild shit right there. Like, that's either like a hidden city that we built or is beyond ancient as F, because that just don't make sense. Oh, this is some background.
Yeah, that's got to be Powell. That's probably Powell.
Oh, look at this one. So they got locking block, megalithic giant blocks on Easter Island, and they're all missing their hats as well. Just crazy.
And then how much deeper? How there's writing on them as well.
Yeah. Oh, I know, right? Like, we're gonna have to do a whole episode on
Yeah, because
that.
no one really covers the writing on those. You never hear much about that.
Rongo, and yeah, I've been wanting to go into that huge. And look at this one. This is smoking gun in Siberia. That's just the size of this. Oops. And the middle of nowhere of this. And the scope of like, oh, there's one giant building thing castle left and like a second one here. And just wiped out.
And just think of where Siberia is at, like as close.
Rock, like look at this. This is nuts. Stories and stories high. That is no small feat of engineering. And then it's like, is every bastion fort, like Star Fort, actually this in scope and just filled with mud and buried, and that there really is 10 stories beneath it? And tunnels upon tunnels, and then like it goes out and it continues on the giant wall, the bastion walls of the Great Wall of Tartaria, the Great Wall of Star Forts there.
Well, I told you, like when I remote viewed it, went deep underground, and that really fascinated me. And it had like these hydraulic systems, and I was like, just really thrown off by it because I didn't know that Star Forts went like had that beneath it, because you see the water around it, but sure enough.
And not why did they build one Alba Witch Wiggler? This is actually part of thousands of them, where it's like every like mile or two in this giant wall they have one of these, and it goes from literally from the mouth of the Dnieper River in Kherson, Ukraine, where the heat of the Russian war is right now, all the way across all of Ukraine and then into Siberia, and then all the way across Siberia into the northern Atlantic or North Arctic, Siberian Arctic Ocean coast. It's wild. It's like the largest never talked about, never mentioned, never researched. Historical anomaly, really. But that's an episode for its own day that we'll be doing.
Yeah,
again.
don't you look at the star forts and you just start to think like Atlantis was a global civilization that thrived.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And that you're bang on with that the star forts were probably Atlantean leftovers. But then all the maps from the 50s, see, that's weird. Who knows? Who knows what and when they're from?
Hey, you know one thing I know? Nobody knows. That's the one thing I know.
I agree.
That's Garden of the Gods too, right? Isn't that right there?
This, I believe, actually might be in Alberta by me somewhere, but it could also be in the US. I'm not sure which Badlands this is, but that is effing wild. And what looks like a megalithic pyramid structure with perfect window in it. Different terraces and entrances. Wild. Oh yeah, nothing to see here, but lots to hear. Again, one of these giant monoliths that looked like they were carved and then blasted. Oops. Whatever they are, just what we're told is absolute BS.
Yeah, what if it was to emit and amplify the scalar waves that like come from deep in the earth, like the natural like earth the
Like
frequencies.
leftover demigod technology, quite probable.
And scalar waves, well, I guess one could argue they're longitudinal waves, right? That goes through everything, even a Faraday cage. So I could see someone being like, why would they amplify it? But yeah, no, the Bosnian pyramid, well, they're scalar waves as well. Probably works with it.
Oh, boom. Here's another one. This is wild. This place in the Garden of the Gods. Like, you got these people statues, and then you have this literal melted castle with statues or cathedral, whatever the heck it is.
Somebody said something that I thought of that, of what if they took like and weaponized it? Like, what if you take the natural frequencies and figured out how to weaponize it? Because they said scalar weapons melted this stuff.
Yeah, that's quite probable. It would have to be, actually, yeah. Some major heat. And yes, I'm going to be going into Drumheller again this year, and it's epic. And I'm going to be showing off the entire pyramid city of Drumheller that I've traveled through many times, and it's world famous for its dinosaurs. And it's also where I experienced what I can only describe as a petrodactyl or frickin' dragon or something flying over at 3:30 a.m. over downtown. It was wild. It was nuts. Anyways, yet another rabbit hole for another day. The Grand Canyon. It even looks Starfort-esque in how the layers are.
Right there. Yes, it does. I love that picture.
And they see this often, actually, with them. And it could, if it was flooded with water up to these layers, might have something to do with it. Oh, wrong way again.
Oh my gosh, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. Yes, Fred Bell did. He said Fred Bell made scalar tech pendants. They took him out a few years ago. I actually live like a mile and a half from where he was. Like, yeah, that's awesome. You know about Fred Bell. He was elevated. And those pendants, those Fred Bell pendant jewelry is gorgeous. They're great pieces.
I'm not sure that I've seen.
Robert Potter sells them. He knew Fred Bell because he grew up in Laguna Beach. And yeah, look into if you want to buy one. Robert Potter is like one of the only suppliers, I think. And Robert Potter does conferences up in Mount Shasta.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That is also a rabbit hole we are going to have to look into for another day.
Well, if anybody wants to learn remote viewing, I'm going to be doing a workshop March 9th. So it's a beginner's workshop, and I'm going to teach how to remote view. So yeah, if you want to do it, go to juliakamman.com. You could email me, julia@juliakamman.com, or add me on social media and get you in there because there's limited spots, limited spaces.
Send me the link for that on Instagram that I can copy and paste it, or in the private chat. Or
Okay.
we'll finish off with this picture of there's a perfect pyramid right in the center here. Like right here is a perfect pyramid. Only to be next to an even larger giant step pyramids. They're absolutely everywhere in there.
Now,
And
beneath
yeah, who doesn't want to learn how to remote view?
most pyramids is water sources, right? And this is like seems higher up.
Well, that's why I say that it had to have been dammed, and that the water would have been up to probably this level, when it was once a paradise and really lived in. But who knows what's under it today? I sure don't. When are you going to remote view the Grand Canyon complex?
I'm going to do like a deep dive. I have remote viewed and I haven't released any of it yet. I don't know how I'm going to do it. That's why I'm like, I get tight-lipped about some of the things I have to say about it. But yeah, that's going to be a big project.
Fair. I love it. I want to hear some more of it. I guess we're at the 2-hour mark. Any last words for today, sister?
No, just if you want to learn how to remote view, that's going to be March 9th. So I would hop on that like soon to reserve your spot. And then in April, I will be at a conference. I'll be speaking at the Alien event in LA. So come down and see me. They're going to have all, Carrie Cassidy is going to be speaking, Brad Olson, Osmonagich, a bunch of great speakers. So yeah.
That's epic. Well, we will discuss more of it on the next one. Thank you for joining, and go subscribe to Julia and go sign up for her remote viewing class. That's all. No.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye. Hey, BurnEye, just like last week, huh?
Weekend at BurnEye's.
Ooh. All right then. Well, have a blessed day. I don't know if we're still live. Catch you on the next one.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just Bernie! Hey, Bernie, just like last week, huh?
Weekend at Bernie's.
Well, it doesn't want to end for some reason, so I'll look at my pictures. My pictures. There we go. Now, you got Pyramid Lake, Nevada. There's the Sphinx head from behind. Also looks like little mini pyramids. Got Peru. How do you do, Peru? Another amazing sight.